Good evening again, everyone. I did go ahead and put in the chat the feedback form. If you're having trouble accessing it there, you can go to our website, which is lansingschools.net. Click on the Board of Education tab, scroll down a bit, and you'll see under Tuesday, March 2nd, there is a link to that feedback form as well. I have 7 o'clock on the dot, so we're going to get started with our next interview this evening. This is a familiar face to us. Our next interview will be with Ms. Jessica Benavides. Thank you, Ms. Benavides, for joining us this evening. We've had the opportunity to review your resume. Please tell us how your background and experiences make you a good fit to be our next superintendent.
Good evening, Madam President and Board Trustees. It's an honor to be here this evening, so I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to interview for the Lansing School District. Something you probably should know about me is that I was born here in Lansing, raised in Lansing, and I'm a current resident of Lansing. And I care very deeply about this community and about the Lansing School District and the children that we serve. I've had 24 years in public education, and over that time, I have served as a teacher, a principal, central office leader, and I'm currently a member of the executive team. I am extremely motivated, and I will tirelessly work to ensure the success of our staff and our students. I think that is the entire reason that the school district exists, is because we are here to serve our students and their success. I do have an extensive instructional background as a teacher and a principal, and currently as a central office leader. I do serve on the district instructional team, and I do have a master's degree in curriculum development. I have been afforded an opportunity after that of a principal, which was to participate in the REAP Aspiring Leaders program. And during that time, I was able to shadow the various central office departments, including Human Resources, Office of School Culture, Office of Student Learning, and Operations, just to name a few. During the 6 weeks in each of those departments that I shadowed, I not only shadowed the executive director of each of those departments, but I also worked in those departments. And so I got a chance firsthand to see the processes and procedures, how the various departments work together. And most importantly, I got to know the employees very well. So I built some long-lasting relationships that I now count on, especially in a central office, because I have those connections with those people that I was able to work side by side with. I did complete a 2-year program through MASA called Horizons, which is for aspiring and current superintendents. In that 2-year program, I was able to develop my leadership skills, broaden my knowledge base around things that superintendents need to be knowledgeable of. And also I was able to network with current superintendents across the state of Michigan. So that is an absolute valuable experience that I think has afforded me some wonderful people to be able to collaborate with and talk to about current issues. I'm currently the executive director of the Department of Innovation and Improvement, where I manage all state and federal grants amounting to $50 million. Currently, with all of our CARES grants that we have been able to attain, we are now managing grants upward of $80 million. So it's a really exciting time in the Lansing School District. We manage all of the budgets for those various grants. We do our audits, programs, evaluations, and make sure that we are funding programs to further student achievement. I also oversee assessment, data, technology, pupil accounting, central enrollment, and probably one of my first loves, school improvement. I also was able to attend a national conference on recruitment and retention during my time with Human Resources. That was especially important to me as a leader in thinking about being a superintendent, because it's especially important to be able to recruit the absolute best staff members for our students and to lead them. And then also to make sure once they're here in the Lansing School District that we retain them, that we give them the best leadership and professional development opportunities. I also serve on the negotiation team, and I've built long-lasting relationships with community members. All of that to say that I feel I have a broad range of experiences that would be an excellent fit for the Lansing School District. I know that I cannot be the expert in every field. But I do know that with the experiences that I've had, I do know who the experts are and that I can call on them to help make some of the best decisions for our kids.
Thank you. Please share an example of a time you have led a sustained multi-year improvement initiative. Be specific regarding the situation, the task at hand, your specific role, and the outcome.
A time that I led a multi-year improvement initiative would be the time I was a middle years principal. So I had the unique opportunity to transition a school from a pre-K3 traditional school into a 4-6 magnet school. During that time of that change, when we have natural changes like that, it is a great time to really put a spin on things. It's an opportunity for change. One of the first things that I did was I spoke to the staff and we brainstormed at one of our very first planning meetings. And the question that I asked them was, if you could build an ideal school, what would it look like? No boundaries, just what would it look like? What would students experience? What would families experience? And we created a vision out of that ideal school setting. We wanted to focus on student achievement, which we did. We created intervention plans in both reading and math. And during the time that I was at that school, our M-STEP scores increased over each year's time. We really wanted to focus on climate and culture and a warm and welcoming environment for families. This is a point of pride for me because when families feel welcome in a school, we know that they trust us with their babies, their children, their top priority. And we know that we can do right by families in that environment. The point of pride that I spoke of was in our parent perception surveys, 100% of the parents that answered the survey said that the environment there was warm and welcoming. So I knew we were doing something right. And that was really encouraging to be able to review those data points. Relationships were especially important. Clear expectations were extremely important in building that ideal culture and vision for the school over the 6 years that I was there. We had some of the highest TFI scores, which is our tiered fidelity inventory, which means implementation of culturally relevant, I'm losing my positive behavior and supports. There it is. It's a mouthful. And those TFI scores said that we were implementing tier 1, 2, and 3 strategies for our students, which is especially important to us. We also had the lowest suspension rate of any 4-6 school in the school district. So I have had extensive knowledge in implementing change and implementing improvement initiatives. And currently in my role as Improvement and Innovation Executive Director, I do that across the district with our school improvement initiatives that we do district-wide. Also during that time, we put together engagement strategies. We wanted our students to have cutting-edge 21st century experiences, which then was nationally recognized by the Magnet Schools of America conference, where we brought home 2 national magnet awards for schools of distinction. So that would be a time that I had led a multi-year initiative.
Managing vision and purpose involves anticipating future trends, creating a compelling vision, and communicating that vision. Describe a situation that conveys your capability in this area.
I mentioned a little bit when I was talking about my experience as a 4-6 principal in talking about the vision and purpose that we had for our school. But I would say that in the time that I have been a teacher and as a principal, my focus really has been school improvement. I was school improvement chair at all of the buildings where I was a teacher. So it was kind of something that I lobbed onto very quickly in my career in education. So as a central office leader, I felt it was important to build a vision for my department and my team so we could support schools in their vision of their schools and aligning the budgets for our school improvement to make sure that we were supporting those initiatives. We created a support system for principals during our peak time, if you will, for school improvement, where we had open hours on Friday that they could come, and we would work with them to analyze their data, help them create a vision. We worked with new principals, and we helped them to align their budgets so that the funding would support their initiatives at the school level.
Please tell us what the term culturally competent means to you. Give an example of how you demonstrate this characteristic and your experience in bringing a diverse group of people to consensus on a difficult issue.
Culturally competent means to me that you have a knowledge of who you are. So all of us have lived experiences. All of us have a cultural context. So when we meet new individuals or we're working with new individuals, we have to know that they also come with their own cultural context. I think being culturally competent means that you know that you have implicit biases. Everyone has them. We'd like to say we don't, but we all do. And I think being culturally competent means that you can acknowledge the fact that you have some implicit biases, that you can challenge some of your own thinking, that you have a spirit of curiosity when you meet someone, that you're an active listener, and you want to get to know them as a whole person for all that they are. I think someone who is culturally competent is very interested in the way that people look at things, their values and beliefs, my values and beliefs, help me make decisions and are ways that I approach the world. I would say that an experience in bringing a diverse group of people to consensus would be also have to do with the fact that our staff had to grow in cultural competency. When I was a principal again at the 4-6 school, we were blessed to become the EL hub for our newcomers. All the students that moved in, our refugee population north of 496, were coming to our school. It was a newcomer program, brand new to our school. And our staff had to think about what that means to be culturally competent, right? So we knew that we were having students come to us that had a very rich culture. We all have a very rich culture, right? But they spoke 29 different languages. I speak one and maybe a little bit of some other ones. So I knew that they would bring a cultural wealth to our school that was a true blessing to all of our students. Many students don't even leave the Lansing School District. Many adults haven't left the Lansing area, the state of Michigan. And by having these students at our school, we got to experience the world through their eyes. So I think a difficult decision that we had to make, or a plan that we had to make, was how do we build a culture where the adults are growing themselves as culturally competent, but we're also trying to grow our students in the area of cultural competency. The way that we did that was to bring in experts. So we brought in our bilingual director, our superintendent at the time, who was an expert also in that area, to help us develop a program where culture could be celebrated and we could have a deeper understanding of the population that we served.
Tell us how you maintain visibility and accessibility for staff, parents, and community groups.
I think this is actually a strength of mine. So I am not a person who likes to sit in their office. In my department, every morning I would greet my colleagues, ask them how their day is going, what they have on their agenda, what's happening. It's important that I stay connected with those that I work with. It helps me to keep a pulse on what's happening. It also helps me to celebrate people's strengths. When I was a principal, that was probably one of my favorite parts of that job. So I got to welcome the students in the morning. I got to be in the lunchroom and pop into classrooms and see all the exciting and incredible things that they were doing. It really gave me a sense of vision and action. So what we had set in place as a school, being visible and being out and in the spaces where kids were, let me see what we were accomplishing as a staff. It also helped me to head off problems. So if you're visible as a principal walking in the hallway, they know you're there. So visibility serves a couple of different purposes. I think when you have visibility, it naturally lends itself to accessibility. So when you're in a classroom and you're saying hi and hello, you're naturally building relationships with people. As a superintendent, that becomes just a little bit more difficult logistically, because you now are servicing 25 schools versus the one that you may have been principal in. So I think it's very important to be very intentional about your visibility. So that would have to be something that I would schedule and make sure happens. It's important for me to know what's happening in the school district, to be able to celebrate the things that we have going on, and also make plans or address situations that might occur or that I become aware of due to that visibility. As far as parents and community groups, it's really important to be responsive. It's important to return phone calls and emails and make yourself available for any concerns, questions, and again, celebrations that people would like to share with you. In the community, it would be very important to attend community events and community meetings. It puts our best foot forward as the Lansing School District, because I would be representing that organization, but it also helps us to bridge potential programs that will impact our students.
Often we learn from successfully facing challenges or experiencing mistakes or failures. Please share a time when this was the case for you. What did you learn from the experience? How did you apply what you learned?
So this is something that we taught our students. So it's part of the STEM approach, that you don't give up the first time something happens. When you build a tower and it falls down, you just don't throw your hands up and say, oh, I don't know what to do. You look at it and you try to build, and you look to see what went wrong and how to do it better. So that's something that we would do with our students. It reminds me of a poster that we had hanging in our library or our STEM lab, and it had the letters FAIL, which was first attempt in learning. And I think it's important to think about failure in the terms of learning. I myself learned from failure because I, as a teacher, was an early adopter. I was someone who was very excited about new ideas, bringing new things to the classroom, keeping things fun and engaging, but yet rigorous. When I became a principal, I learned very quickly that there is a system to change. I can't just expect change to happen overnight. It takes a while for people to process change, and everyone processes change a little bit differently. It's important to have a clear vision, make sure staff have the appropriate skills to feel competent and confident so that the plan can be executed well. And that also helps to reduce any anxiety they might be feeling around change, because that is an emotion that tends to come up when you change things. That failure has served me well because, as you know, we have been experiencing a lot of change lately with the pandemic. And I learned from that you have to be very transparent and very diligent about a plan. It has to be laid out, methodical. We need to make sure we've kind of checked all of the boxes, dotted the I's and crossed the T's. So I would say that's an experience that I learned from failure.
Please describe how you would work to create a learning and working environment that is welcoming, inclusive, and increasingly diverse. How would you make sure that this is supported across the district and community?
I think, I know you lead by example. So if you want a warm and welcoming environment, then you yourself have to be warm and welcoming. You have to model what you'd like to see. I think when a person is greeted at the door with a smiling face and someone's excited to see them, that naturally lends itself to feeling welcome in that environment. When parents would come and see me, it's making time for a parent. Even something's happening, you have to make the time. And that makes them feel valued. They're coming to you for a reason. And so I think leading by example, and when you lead by example, that trickles through your entire system. I think that having that welcoming environment when people feel comfortable and they feel welcome and a sense of belonging, it naturally lends itself to inclusivity and people of all cultures, of all diverse backgrounds. Once you feel welcome, you feel like you are part of your belonging. So I think leading by example and starting with that welcoming spirit, you have to take an interest. You have to celebrate what you see. And when people see that that's a priority of yours, especially as a school leader, then they also make it a priority.
How do you recruit, develop, and lead a management team? Give us an example of how you've done this in the past.
In recruiting a management team, I'm looking for people that come with different strengths. I want people on the team that have different experiences and different expertise. When we can bring a diverse group of people together that have different strengths, then we can make better decisions. We can make better plans. So a way that I do that is when I'm going to tackle a task or project, I think about the scope of that task or project, and then I choose people that I feel can bring some things to the table that maybe are not areas that I'm super strong in or that I know they're experts in. An example I will give you is just recently, we have a federally state mandated test called WIDA, and it's for our EL learners. And the test cannot be done online. So we knew that we were going to need to bring in 1,500 students to test on the WIDA. And it had to be in person in schools. And of course, we've not had students in schools since March, and we're in the pandemic. So this was going to take quite a team to make sure that we could complete this testing. We knew it was going to take 6 weeks. We knew it was going to be at multiple sites. So the thing that I did was I wanted to make sure that the people that were a part of that team held all of the pieces to make it safe and secure for staff, administration, and for our students. So I brought together union leadership, our teachers union and our principals union, because we were going to be bringing in principals and teachers. I wanted their input. That was the first group, along with our executive director for special populations. So those were the first individuals I met with. Then we grew the team with our assessment coordinator, elementary principals, high school principals, Sodexo food, Dean transportation, of course, our COVID coordinators. We couldn't do it without them. And we built a plan to bring our students back for this one-day testing. We've now done the testing at 4 sites. It's gone exceptionally well. And I think that bringing together and leading that team to make sure that that shared leadership was there, that everybody who came to that meeting had something that we needed to make sure that that plan could be executed in the best possible way.
Describe how you go about engaging and affirming staff members, union members, and union leadership.
As a teacher, I was part of the LSEA, our teachers union, and as a principal, I was on the LASA board. So I know the importance of communicating and working with unions and union leadership. I think it is something you have to do, that they are an integral part of everything we do here. I think a way to engage them is to build relationships. You have to keep union leadership informed. You have to know when to bring them to the table, much like I did with WIDA. We needed them and their input and their support to be able to do that. I do serve on professional council, which is a once-a-month meeting where we do meet with union leadership, our teacher leadership. And it's a wonderful meeting because I get to have a pulse of what's happening in the school district, and I can hear it directly from teachers. So building those relationships is especially important when you're working with union leadership. I think you need to develop strong communication, trust, and a mutual understanding. So I think when you affirm people, this is something that is a big deal in the education world, because when you affirm, you don't want to ever just say to someone, good job. You need to know what the good job is. So you need to add the details to that. You need to affirm people by noticing what it is they're doing and acknowledging that the value that they bring. I think also when you're working with staff and union leadership, you need to understand that sometimes you're going to have to come to a compromise. And you need to be prepared to do that, with the caveat that it's always going to be in the best interest of our students and our staff and families.
How do you go about making decisions on controversial issues?
I think the first thing I would need would be some information. So I would need to know a timeline. I think that timelines matter when it comes to making decisions. If in the best world, you would have some time to create a process and a plan, which I think is especially important when the issue is controversial. I think it's important to build in stakeholder input. I think it's important to have a process that is completely transparent and that you have laid the expectation for what that input will garner. So are you asking for a vote from people when they give you input, or are you asking for a voice? And I think that heads off people being turned off from asking for their opinion. If they think that they have a vote, that's very different than having a voice or a say in what's happening. I think putting in processes for a survey, a town hall forum, it's a big issue, is important. We all know that when you make a controversial, a decision on something controversial, you're going to have to take a look at what the consequences are. What is the impact going to be? You need to be able to surround yourself with people that will help you give you the information, the most updated information. I would want to know everything it is to know, so there's no surprises. I want to be able to make the best decision possible. I think in the end, there's going to be some people that might not like your decision. That's probably why it's controversial, right? Because there's a couple different sides to things. But I think when you can be transparent about your process, then at least people understand that it's a fair process and you're being very transparent with it. I also think it's very important to communicate widely what the decision was and also why the decision was made as it is. I think giving people a sense of understanding helps in making controversial decisions or on issues that are controversial.
Tell us what budget development process you use and how you gain broad support for the final result.
So this is something actually I worked on yesterday. So right now we are working on our categorical budgets. So we are working with Title I, Title II, 31A, and we are developing the district categorical budget. The first thing that I do in my budget process is I look to see, obviously, how much money we're working with. So is it more or less than last year? Because that helps me come into a mindset that I either need to look for things that we can add to the budget if we have more money, or we have to make some difficult decisions to either scale back or cut things out of our budgets. The second thing that I do is I review the previous year's budget. So this is really important, especially in the area when you're working with state and federal monies, because there are certain goals attached to that funding. Much like in general fund, there's goals associated with that based on the strategic plan. We look to see, when we look at the budget, how successful the programs were. We often do program evaluations. Minimally, we look at the data associated with those budget items. We look at our return on investment. And when we do that, it helps us to make better choices or better decisions on the budget. It helps us know whether we need to scale something up, scale it down, if there's room for new initiatives. And of course, one of the number one things is input. So this budget is not my budget. It is the budget for the school district. So I need to make sure that the Office of Student Learning, our executive team, Office of School Culture, and the like are all involved in the decision-making process and making sure that it's aligned with the vision of the school district. Once I've received that, I've made any changes that are necessary, and it is approved by executive team, then I move it on to our federal and state program officers, and they put a very close eye on it for allowability and making sure that it is following all the guidelines that you need to for those budgets. I think it's really important to be fiscally responsible. That's high on my priority list when I'm looking at budgets, and also that there's transparency in the development of the budget.
What does an effective relationship between the board and superintendent look like, and how do you cultivate such a relationship?
I think an effective relationship has to have mutual respect. It has to have very strong communication. So it is my job to make sure that the school board would be informed. It's important that I am accessible to the board. And if there's any questions or concerns, that I'm able to address those. It's important that I am an active listener to the board and know where the board wants to take our school district and what are high priorities to the board. It's also important to establish early on the roles and responsibilities and the expectations of each of the parties involved. And it's important to build those relationships over time. So I think it's important for me to get to know each and every board member and build that relationship so that moving forward we can be on the same page and that we can further the strategic plan and the vision of the school district, which ultimately will improve student achievement for our kids.
Tell us about your experience in the development and implementation of one specific program change or initiative. What processes did you use? How did you involve others and provide support for sustaining this initiative?
I was brought on as a special project to develop or to further our Summer Explorers program. So it's a program that is it's very innovative. But when I was brought on, we had enrollment we were looking to increase enrollment for that summer. We were looking to beef up some of our innovative approaches, different ways of looking at working with community partners, adding on community partners. So when I came into that program change or initiative, the first thing I needed to do was to set some goals. I did that with the current executive team, the program vision. I did talk with the other Summer Explorers directors from past years to learn from them. A lot of them had wonderful connections with community partners already and were more than willing to introduce me to them as I developed the project. The process that I would use would be to look at what I felt needed to happen to increase that enrollment, number one. At the time, we had transitioned in the Lansing School District to electronic enrollment. So I knew that broke down some barriers for families around the paper pencil enrollment. Having been a principal and had students sign up for Summer Explorers in the past, we all know that if you have kids like I do, a paper goes in the backpack and then it is in some, it may not ever come out, right? Or the parent goes through the backpack, it's not there. So I wanted to make sure that we could make Summer Explorers enrollment absolutely as easy as possible for parents. So I worked with the technology department to initiate that change. I also worked with the community partners because I wanted to really make sure that the summer program really lent itself to the vision of the Lansing School District, which includes aligning it to our pathways. So all of our community partners, I worked with them to develop what their programs would look like. And we aligned them to the 3 pathways that we have in Lansing, which was really wonderful for our kids because parents choose schools based on pathways. So it gave them some summer experiences to be able to expand their experiences in that pathway, or try a new pathway, just to see how their students, give them some exposure to different things. I would provide, support for sustaining this initiative. The support would be working with the community partners. I did present at PCAC to our parent group and garnered their feedback. Also let them know about the program so we could promote it. And I also worked with the CTE director, which was the first time we were able to offer internship programs for students. And that was a really wonderful experience for them in the summertime. We were able to pay them $10 an hour, which was amazing. And they got to have experiences with the state of Michigan, our own technology department, and then our community partners. So that is one program that I initiated a change, and that has continued to be a model that I think we will use for a while.
What unique skills or experience do you bring to this position, and how will the Lansing School District be served by this?
A unique skill that I think I bring is building effective teams. I really enjoy collaborating with others. I think when you work with other people, you can get the best idea possible. Working in collaborative teams can also be a lot of fun because you can build relationships with people. And I might start with one idea and it snowballs into something else, and then we end up with the best idea possible. I think building effective teams and being a collaborator helps me to be very proactive, forward thinking, and upstream in my thinking. I also think that a strength or unique skill of mine has been my focus on school improvement, with being able to develop a strong vision for projects, seeing that vision through, knowing how to monitor a vision and making sure it's successful, or making changes along the way if necessary, and then building with the lens of sustainability. I also think building positive relationships is incredibly important. You can't do anything without building positive relationships. That being said, I think those skills lend itself to the Lansing School District because we are going to be needing to develop a plan and work together to do this. We're in unknown territory. Everyone in education is right now. And it's going to take a team to build an extraordinary plan to have our students come back to school in the fall. We know that education will probably not look like it does now, but we need to know what it's going to look like to serve our students best. And there are many positives that have come out of the pandemic. I know that our students, a lot of them have built habits to be able to be more self-sufficient, to be more self-managers of their time. And how can we capitalize on some of that, because they've had to do that during this time? A lot of them are tech savvy. They were tech savvy before this, but I think they've gotten to know maybe the keyboard a little bit better with all of their fingers. And and I think that we can build on that plan, and having the unique approach of vision and collaboration will be very important in that process.
Tell us how your previous professional experiences in the classroom have influenced you as a leader.
Mm-hmm. So as a teacher, first and foremost, again, I'm saying this over and over, but relationships, right? So if you build lasting relationships with students, their families, and their parents, then that is so rewarding, first of all. But second of all, then you can really get to student achievement. Building relationships translates directly into being a good leader. You have to have good relationships with people. I still have parents that call me to this day to celebrate things that their now 20-some-year-old child is doing. It makes me feel really old, but it also makes me feel really happy to hear the extraordinary things that our students are doing. I think another thing that I carry with me, and that I hope that every leader carries with them, is when you're in the classroom, you know why you signed up to be a teacher. You were a teacher because you love kids. You want to be there for students. That is the entire reason that all of us are here. And if you can keep that right here at all times and know that every decision you make, every program you create has students first in your mind, then you'll be successful in education. So I think having been a teacher, that keeps me very grounded in the purpose of wanting to even be a leader in the Lansing School District. I also think that your classroom experiences help you to understand people. So everyone processes things differently. As a teacher, teachers are very adept at teaching things 10, 15, 20, 25 different ways, as many ways as they need to make sure that they're reaching every student and they're making sure every student grows. I think as a leader, it is your number one priority to make sure that you grow the people around you. You are nowhere without a team. You're nowhere without people around you to support the initiatives that you're trying to do. So I would say those are the things that I've taken with me from the classroom, although that is one of the most rewarding roles that I've ever had.
What would you consider to be the single biggest obstacle to improving student academic achievement?
Well, this is something I meet every Friday on, which is absenteeism. I think that is the single biggest obstacle. Right now, when I say I meet weekly on that, I am the co-chair for the Lansing School District's attendance initiative. Minutes matter, make them count. And we know that absenteeism or attendance, good attendance, and building those habits early are indicators of success for students. So when students regularly attend school, they are more likely to read by grade 3. They are less likely to experience course failures. They are more likely to graduate on time with their peers. With the attendance initiative, and I know the work of principals and teachers alike, it is important to know that it is not just kids not coming to school. There are reasons why. So it is part of our job and responsibility to make sure that we're helping to break down those barriers and understand the obstacles to attending school. Is it that a student doesn't feel a sense of belonging? Is it a transportation issue? Is it that they're getting up brothers and sisters in the morning and they miss the bus? So what can we have to get to know our students, again, building relationships, talking and communicating with people to make sure our students are in our schools and have access to the curriculum on a daily basis.
Benavides, we appreciate your interest in becoming our next superintendent. Do you have any questions for me? Anything we haven't talked about?
I have a question. I am interested in what the board sees as their top priorities for the school district moving forward.
Improving student academic achievement.
Okay.
Without even asking
no hesitation. Right.
them, I know exactly what my colleagues would say.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Benavides. The board is interviewing a number of candidates, as you know, and we will contact you if you were selected as a finalist. Thank you for coming. We have enjoyed meeting with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will again encourage attendees to fill out the feedback form, submit that. We have already been getting the feedback forms from the first interview, so it's a pretty quick turnaround. The board takes that input very seriously, so please be sure to do that. We have 16 minutes before our next interview. I will not be starting it early at the direction of MASB, so we will reconvene at 8 o'clock for Dr. Renee Sanchez.